I would like to take just a minute to welcome everyone who has taken the time to be with us this evening. I now call to order the August 19, 2021 regular Board of Aldermen meeting. If you would, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Alderman Becker.
Here.
Alderman Rucker.
Here.
Alderman Ross.
Here.
Alderman Rose. Here. Alderman Osteen.
I am here.
Mayor Alvery.
Here. All right, we do have a quorum. Our first item of business is usually mayor's communications, and I have nothing this evening. Now on to citizens' communication. This is time set aside on the agenda for citizens and visitors to address the mayor and board on any topic that is not a public hearing, and there are no public hearings on tonight's agenda. For those here in person, speakers will be restricted to 3 minutes unless otherwise permitted. Minutes may not be donated or transferred from one speaker to another. Visitors attending via online will be in listen-only mode. Any questions or comments for the mayor and board may be sent to the city clerk at tbethran@osagebeach.org no later than 10 a.m. on the board meeting days, which are the first and third Thursdays of each month. Subsequent questions or submitted questions and comments may be read during the citizens communication section of the agenda. The Board of Aldermen will not take action on any item not listed on the agenda, nor will it respond to questions, although staff may be directed to respond at a later time. The Mayor and Board of Aldermen welcome and value input and feedback from the public. I see Alderman Schmidt is here to share with us this evening and was anxious. I know he's already signed in and everything. So,
Yes,
Alderman
sir.
Schmidt, please, good to have you with us this
Okay.
evening.
Thank you, Mayor, Alderman, board, staff. I'm here tonight to offer the board a modified Barry Pruitt Memorial Drive to Goldie Pearl Boulevard sidewalk project. The Special Road District has been interested and actively working to get these sidewalk projects accomplished since at least June of 2016. 5 years plus, as we see them to be in the best interest of our city's citizens' safety. Now that we are about to accomplish a working agreement on the, as we call it, Dearborn sidewalk, the road district would like to offer you the opportunity to overcome the hurdles holding up completion of the special, or the road district over in Pruitt's Point. To accomplish this, the road district board is willing to add $20,000 to what we have already offered the city to cover engineering, design, and management of this sidewalk project. Oh, by the way, you may not have seen it, but the latest building estimate is up to $140,127.50 from $131,250. That's a construction cost increase of $877.50, and the road district will cover that also. So it boils down to, you don't have to worry about amending your budget to get this covered. We'll cover all the expense of it. Yeah. Okay, thank you for your attention. Do you have any questions?
Questions from the board? Yes, Richard?
Is this, Ron, you just mentioned the budget, and is this a
project in the budget? Because I wasn't looking at the budget and trying to remember
It
which
has to be in our
project.
budget. Even though we're being fully funded or reimbursed by them, we have to show it in our budget because we're letting it for bid.
Yeah, I think his
We'll have to
question
show it
was,
for
is it
revenue.
in the budget for this year?
It is not in the 2021 budget.
Okay. Okay, so the net cost to us, I'm sorry I didn't keep track of the numbers, but the net cost to us would be
0.
0.
Well, from what Ron's saying, it's 0, but I don't have all the data in front of me to confirm that.
If you're paying, that's a good number.
Yeah, that's a good
And
number.
and Ron I'd thrown into the pot $20,000 for engineering costs. I just don't know what the engineering cost on that would be, so.
Dave, do we have any idea if that
Should
would be
be
sufficient?
easily covered because in addition to other things, the bid has a $18,277.50 contingency fund included in that $141,000. So we add $8,000 to up it to that figure and then give you 20, that should cover it pretty well.
Okay, great.
One other-
Thank you.
Yes.
Is Gold, so I'm trying to get on a map here and I see, you said from Barry Pruitt to Goldie Pearl, is that right?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, it's not showing up. Where is
Gary
Gold?
Pruitt is technically your D road.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Right.
Highway
Goldie
D.
Pearl is
And
between the
Goldie-
bank and
The boat.
the boat place.
West Marine?
Yeah.
That road that drops
Between
down there by
Gold-
Steak and
That's
Shake?
actually Marty's
Right.
Marine now.
Next.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that sure be an extension, so I have no concerns.
okay. We'll have
Okay.
staff take a look at that and make a recommendation to us, and maybe we can get this set up as an agenda item in a not-too-distant agenda.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Ron.
Appreciate your time.
Need to get it on.
Is there anyone else here who would like to share with the board this evening? All right, seeing none, we move on. Our next item of business is the approval of the consent agenda. If the board desires, the consent agenda may be approved by a single motion. Tonight's agenda consists of the minutes of the August 5th, 2021 regular Board of Aldermen meeting and the August 19th, 2021 bills list. Are there any questions, comments, or proposed revisions? If there are none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Alderman Morose, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Becker, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. We now move on to unfinished business. Our first item of unfinished business, request a second reading by title only of ordinance number 21.50, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, adopting an amendment to the zoning map of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri by rezoning 10 acres as described in rezoning case number 412. The first reading for all unfinished items was approved at the August 5th regular board meeting. Are there any comments from the city planner?
Only that it was case number 414, not 412.
Okay,
That's all. But unless there's questions, I have nothing further than that.
all right, we need to get that changed. That's on the, we've got it as 412.
I have 414 on my
No,
agenda.
414.
No, the ordinance
Oh, the
says
ordinance
412.
says 412? Okay,
The ordinance says 412.
all right,
Ah, that's where it's messed up.
good catch. I will get that changed.
Really?
All right. Are there any comments or questions from the board? If not, is there a motion to approve the second reading with the amendment as proposed by the city planner?
Motion.
Alderman Ross, and second, Alderman Osteen. Roll call, please.
Alderman Rucker,
Yes.
Alderman Morose,
Yes.
Alderman Osteen,
Yes.
Alderman Ross,
Yes.
Alderman Becker.
Yes.
All right, the second reading passes. Our next item, request a second reading by title only of ordinance number 21.51, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending ordinance number 20.83, adopting the 2021 annual budget, transfer funds for necessary expenses for a connective sidewalk project. Any additional comments from the city administrator?
No, sir.
Are there any questions from the board? If not, is there a motion to approve second reading?
So moved.
Alderman Morose, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Ross, roll call, please.
Alderman Becker,
Yes.
Alderman Rucker.
Yes.
Alderman Morose.
Yes.
Alderman Osteen.
Yes.
Alderman Ross.
Yes.
All right, the second reading passes. Our next item requests a second reading by title only of ordinance number 2153, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending ordinance number 20.83, adopting the 2021 annual budget, transfer of funds for necessary expenses, amending engineering professional services. Any additional comments from the city administrator?
No, sir.
With there being none, are there any questions from the board? There are none. Is there a motion to approve second reading?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Rucker, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Ross, roll call, please.
Alderman Ross.
Yes.
Alderman Becker.
Yes.
Alderman Rucker.
Yes.
Alderman Morose.
Yes.
Alderman Osteen.
Yes.
All right, the second reading passes. Our final unfinished item this evening requests a second reading by title only of ordinance number 2158, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending ordinance number 20.83, adopting the 2021 annual budget, transfer of funds for necessary expenses for the completion of the Lee C. Fine Memorial Airport apron projects. Any comments from the city administrator?
No, sir.
Any questions from the board? With none, is there a motion to approve second reading? Alderman Becker, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Rucker, roll call, please.
Alderman Osteen.
Yes.
Alderman Ross.
Yes.
Alderman Becker.
Yes.
Alderman Rucker.
Yes.
Alderman Morose.
Yes.
All right, the second reading passes. Now to new business. Our first item is requesting a first reading of Bill number 2054, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with All Rise Elevator Company for the modernization and maintenance of the City Hall elevator in an amount not to exceed $99,877.50. Building official, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. An RFP for City Hall elevator modernization was advertised, resulting in 3 proposals. This project is budgeted in the amount of $100,000. The apparent low bidder is All Rise Elevator Company in the amount of $96,500. I've contacted references, received excellent reviews and recommendations, and I do recommend awarding the contract to perform elevator modernization maintenance to All Rise Elevator Company in the amount not to exceed $99,877.50. This does reflect an additional 3.5% for any potential modifications or additions that arise during the completion of this project.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Alderman Morose.
I have a couple questions. When was the last time that we had a company come in to do like a total revamp or maintenance on the elevator?
That's never been done in the history
Never
of the
been
building.
done?
No, ma'am.
And how old is the elevator?
Since it was built, how old is the building?
95?
95.
95.
95.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess my next question is, I was reading and I thought I didn't understand. I know there's like 1-year warranty, and then I was reading about they are not liable of any problems. I went into great length of description, and neither would be we, and I didn't quite, I'd like to have some clarification. If there's something, I mean, they have a warranty on their parts and on their work. They come and service it, but there's, I didn't understand about there's no liability.
I'm not exactly sure what part that is. I'd be glad to sit down with you and take a look at the specifics on that. The original contract that they supplied did have some limited liability clauses that our city attorney had removed, and they agreed to that. So I don't know if that's what you're referencing, or if there's something else in particular that.
Okay, well,
Which page is it on, Alderman Morose?
well, right now, I couldn't tell you.
It may be 69. There's number 7 on 69 starts talking about indemnification, holding them harmless.
I believe that's a clause that Ed had us put in the contract, the indemnification piece.
But yeah.
He may be able to explain that better.
You're
than-
right,
than
page
Ron.
69, all rise shall have no responsibility or liability for any loss, delay, expense, or damage caused by strikes, lockouts, or order labor disputes, fire, flood, whatever, and then it goes on. and then it says acts of God or any other cause, which is unavoidable. Well, if they're not gonna do any liability, I mean, does that mean we are? I just wanna be sure that where we are at with that.
Well, Alderman Mayor's, we'll take a look at the language per se. What you're really looking at there is what we call a force majeure clause in contract law. And those are clauses that exempt performance for things that are beyond anyone's control, okay? There were several things in this contract, we went over these with these guys, and I'll get with Ron and we'll go over it again before we bring it up for second reading, obviously. But there were objectionable things which we took out, which the company agreed to take out without a problem, which you shouldn't see at all in any of this. The idea of assigned a force majeure clause is that there will be, in any contractual relationship that lasts over a period of time, an opportunity for what we would have called acts of God, okay?
Sure.
To make the performance impossible. And parties generally agree on those things that, okay, well, we're not going to hold you responsible under that. That's probably where we're going with this, but I'll get with Ron and we'll go over it in detail before the next meeting.
Thank you.
But that was the intent of the clause.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Yes, Alderman Osteen.
Well, it's more of a comment or concern. For the cost for this expense, as well as the expected life expectancy of the elevator, a one-year warranty to me seems very
Ludicrous.
correct.
I don't even know how to comment on that.
I don't know if that's
yet.
industry standard, but it seems,
Yeah,
once
it
again,
is.
for the cost and the fact, well, our existing elevator is 25 years old, well, then you can base the life expectancy somewhere along 25 years, but only a one-year warranty kind of concerned me.
Okay. That is a
Just a
standard
comment.
construction warranty is 1 year. If you'd like me to look into something,
Are there extended warranty options?
I do not know the answer to that. I can find out and have that information to you before the second reading.
Sure, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Alderman Ross.
I guess along that line, Ron, because I don't think they're in here unless I missed them, was it the same warranties, do you know, of the other competitors?
Yes.
They were all one-year warranties?
Yes, all 1 year warranties.
Okay. So, thank you.
Alderman Rucker.
Yes, a couple things. You indicated that the budget amount's 100,000, but when I look in the blue sheet at the very beginning, it shows the budget amount of 105,000.
There was $5,000 in that line item for concrete repair out front of the building.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing is was there any pre-bid meeting on this?
There was not a pre-bid meeting for the RFP. We did require that they come here and tour the building with me or Doug prior to presenting the bid.
Quite concerned that we had two bids that they didn't provide all the information. The other question I have as far as their clarity, I noticed I didn't see a bid tabulation sheet.
Okay.
And I guess
Breaking out the bid.
no distrust to be meant on you at all, but I thought that the board had to throw out the bids. There was 3 bids that were provided. 2 of them did not meet the requirement, and I assumed that the normal procedure is staff would bring it to us and say, we've got 3 bids, but 2 of them do not meet the bid specs. And the board would dismiss those bids, that was not something that staff could do. I don't have any problem dismissing them. I don't have any problems taking and doing that, but procedural-wise, I thought that's what we did before.
I will
I'm not
have,
familiar with you making a record of dismissing any bids. Those bids fall by the wayside once the board determines it wants to do business with a certain company. In other words, when you grant the contract, okay, the other bids become a nullity, okay? There's never been a vote that I'm aware of, as long as I've been city attorney, where the board has voted to reject some bids and accept another bid. The board just basically says, we will accept this bid that staff has recommended on this contract. If you're talking about rejecting bids for the fact that they're non-conforming, okay, you have the ability to reject a non-conforming low bid if that's specific. I don't know whether there's a non-conforming low bid on this one or not. Again.
I just thought in past, when we had bids that did not meet the specifications, that they were presented to us with the recommendation from staff that they didn't meet the specifications. We didn't, I'm not saying we dismissed them, but we were apprised of the fact that there was 3 bids, 2 of them did not meet the specifications, and then the board took action to approve the one that did, or whatever the recommendation was. I just thought that was something the board had to do, and that wasn't within the staff. Now,
Alderman Rucker, our purchasing policy it goes into detail of how to reject, and Ed's correct, that's kind of how it's set up. If you have one that you pick. Now, as far as procedure-wise in the past, we maybe just missed this one. In the past, we have included a bid tab just to be transparent on the bids that we were asking you to choose from. So we can just make a point to make sure that
I don't have any problem with
that.
with recommendation. I just
Yeah.
want to just dot our I and cross our T, especially since we had, out of the 3, 2 of them that did not meet the specification.
Did 2 not meet specifications?
Correct, yes. Yeah, well, I'll make sure that we get the bid tab attached into the next blue sheet and the
Yeah.
next second reading.
All right, any other questions? Yes, Alderman
I
Ross?
apologize for asking one more question. Ron, do we know, usually these manufacturers, and I would assume this is an Otis elevator, I think, currently?
Yes, that is correct.
Are they an authorized repair replacement company for Otis? Do we know? It says they have experience with them, but it doesn't note that they're authorized. And I don't know that Otis has an outside their own company service network, but many manufacturers do.
I do not know the answer to that. I do know that the components that they have provided in the bid specs are non-proprietary, so we wouldn't run into the issue down the road that if they need a part, it's only provided by one company. We specified that we wanted the non-proprietary.
I appreciate that. I guess all I would say is if they are, for example, an authorized service agent for Otis, that would make me feel even more comfortable.
Okay.
Assuming they have a network of those.
Other questions? Yes,
I just have one other question or comment. If this is the first time since the elevator was installed, right? And I'm looking at all of these parts that are going to be replaced, and I'm thinking of cost, obviously. I just question that is every single of these parts need to be replaced? I mean, Ron, I don't know a darn thing about elevator parts.
I might know one more thing than you.
I'm sorry?
I might know one more than you. I'm not an elevator expert by any means.
Well, I mean, I think, do we need to pay for everything new to replace of every single part? Aren't there other parts that are still working fine? I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
the parts that are working fine, we are keeping. The problem that we have now is that the control unit and everything that it speaks with are completely outdated, and we can't get parts for them anymore. So what they're proposing to replace are the electronic components that will be up to date with technology and will be able to communicate.
Well, pardon me, I just needed to ask. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? If there are none, is there a motion to approve first reading?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Osteen, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Ross, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? First reading passes. Our next item is request of first reading of Bill Number 2159, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to execute the Show Me Court Agreement for use in the Osage Beach Municipal Division of the 26th Judicial Circuit Court, and authorizes the opening of a new Osage Beach Municipal Division bank account for the provision of segregated funds. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. The city is the beneficiary and also the recipient of the bad news about court automation and court reform. Court automation's been proceeding in the state for several years, and then court reform, as it happened after Ferguson, made things even more complicated. Essentially, we're the last folks in the state that have to go on show me courts. So we have the benefit of, we have everyone else's experience that precedes us. The detriment to that is that we're expected to do this now and know what we're doing because everybody else has worked out the kinks. You have two ordinances before you, and I'll address the second one in more detail when we get there. But what we need to do is authorize the mayor to execute this very brief agreement saying that the city will participate in Show Me Courts, and authorize the creation of a specific bank account that the Supreme Court is requiring so that funds are not just segregated in a budget line, but so funds are segregated under a bank account number. That's what this ordinance does. Frankly, it's required if we're going to have a municipal division of the Camden County Circuit Court.
All right, thank you. Questions from the board? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve first reading?
So moved.
Alderman Morose and a second from Alderman Rucker. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? First reading passes. Our next item is requesting a first reading of Bill number 20-60, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, setting costs for the Osage Beach Municipal Division in accordance with the Show Me Courts automated plan by replacing or repealing Section 138.280 of the Osage Beach Municipal Code and adopting a new Section 138.200 in lieu thereof. City Attorney.
Yes, members of the board. There may be a typo in that. It probably should be 138.280 as well. I meant to drop the new ordinance in the same place. We'll correct that when we get to second reading. I'll double check that. This is obviously part of the Show Me Courts automation plan. The two nuggets of information you need to know in terms of how court costs change. The Supreme Court was very kind, and they provided me a draft ordinance that I basically copied so that we were using their language for what court costs should be. This repeals the original $3 of court costs that we've been paying for the last several years for the Missouri Sheriff's Retirement Fund. That was an item of litigation that was contested from the moment the fund was adopted, as it was not, as county sheriffs have nothing to do with municipal court divisions, but this is the way the state legislature chose to fund their retirement plan. Finally, the Missouri Supreme Court agreed with the plaintiffs in that case and said county sheriffs don't have anything to do with municipal courts, therefore this is an inappropriate cost, and the cost was declared unconstitutional. Our ordinance will repeal that $3 section, so that will be held for naught. It's not there any longer, following what the Missouri Supreme Court ruled. The ordinance will also impose an additional $7 automation fee, which we will collect and then pass up to the Missouri Supreme Court, which pays for the Show Me Courts automation plan. And the way Show Me Courts will work for us is basically it's a web-based service. We will click into that, do our business on it. We don't have any of the back-end problems with servers and software maintenance. The Missouri Supreme Court will take care of all that through the Show Me Courts automation plan. But we will be charging $7 of court costs per ticket that passes through our municipal court, which is the way this cost is defrayed. So with that said, this is another one of these, the Missouri Supreme Court asked you very politely to do this or else. City Attorney would recommend we go ahead and approve it.
All right, thank you. Questions from the board? With none, is there a motion to approve first reading? Alderman Becker, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Rucker, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? First reading passes. Our next item is requesting both a first and second reading of Bill number 2061, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending ordinance number 20.83, adopting the 2021 annual budget, transfer of funds for necessary expenses for police equipment. City Administrator.
Yes, Mayor, members of the board. At the last Board of Aldermen meeting, the board approved to move forward with adding body cams back to our budget and proceeding with that process. So this is the budget amendment that formalizes that for Todd to, once he gets ready to actually do the purchase. I know he's working on the bidding or sole source and moving that right along.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments from the board? With none, is there a motion to approve first reading? Alderman Becker, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Ross, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? First reading passes. Second reading by title only of ordinance number 2161, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending ordinance number 20.83, adopting the 2021 annual budget transfer of funds for necessary expenses for police equipment. Are there any additional questions from the board? With none, is there a motion to approve second reading?
Motion approved.
Alderman Rucker, second. Alderman Morose. Roll call, please.
Alderman Morose?
Yes.
Alderman Osteen?
Yes.
Alderman Ross?
Yes.
Alderman Becker?
Yes.
Alderman Rucker?
Yes.
All right, second reading passes. Our next item is a request a motion to approve the purchase of various pumps, panels, and communication equipment from municipal equipment in an amount not to exceed $223,903.70. Public Works Operations Manager, please.
This item is for the budgeted purchase of pumps, electrical panels, and communications equipment for the rehab of 3 different lift stations. Those lift stations are Huff Puff, the Legends, and Indian Point condos. Basically, the Legends includes 1 pump. Indian Point condos is 1 pump. All these are electrical. All the panels are being replaced with this. And then Huff Puff is limping along currently on 1 pump, and this will replace 2 pumps at Huff Puff. Those are 25 horsepower. Again, these are budgeted. And a sole source purchase through municipal equipment. And this is a sole source purchase. So I recommend approval.
All right, thank you. Questions from the board? Yes, Alderman Osteen.
Kevin, just one question for you. You referenced lead time needed. How long is it to secure these items?
Yeah, great point. The lead time has been especially tough in the last, 14 months. The electrical parts, they claim we'll get in 4 to 6 weeks. I think it's a little optimistic. We're going to see, a lot of times they are overly optimistic, but the lead time stated is 4 to 6 weeks upon approval.
Thank you.
Other questions? With none, is there a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second? Alderman Becker. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is approved. All right, our next item is a discussion, the Citizens Advisory Committee's report and feedback. City Clerk and/or Alderman Ross?
You can have it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this point, if it would be okay, pleasure of the board and the mayor, Luke Hagedorn, who was the president, is here. Appreciate you making time, Luke. You dress up pretty good, too. I don't know if we can do this as a question format. To tell you the truth, I'd rather let Luke speak for the committee versus myself and Phyllis, who helped the committee. I will say I appreciate and applaud Luke's commitment and leadership on the committee, and everyone else's. Gloria is here, who was on the committee, Ron's wife, Darlene, and several others. I won't mention them all. It was a lot of work, and I'll just say that some people hung in there, and it took a while to kind of get this all organized and bring it forward in a, lack of a better term, report, and hopefully the board finds it valuable. So however we want to proceed is fine.
Okay. I guess you're right. I guess the best thing to do is just find out if the board has any questions or comments. Yes, Alderman Osteen.
Going back towards the handout that was passed out.
The report?
The report, actually, line item number 9, it discussed a survey of local businesses as far as their needs and ways we think that they can support, or we can support local businesses. Can you give us a time frame on when do we actually want to develop this survey? Who's going to be involved?
Go ahead.
Come on up, Luke. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate Mr. Mayor and the board for the time. We didn't really get into specifics on that particular one, and that kind of came up in one of the last meetings we had. It took a little while for us to gain momentum with this committee. We started out meeting in person, and then we went virtual, and then getting quorum month to month was sometimes a problem and things like that. So it was a little bit of a start and a stop kind of thing. But at a certain point, we kind of decided we needed to come to the board with something. And so that's kind of what this document represents, kind of where we were at that particular point in time. The survey was just, we were just discussing different ways to reach out to the business community and the community at large. And we do know there has been other surveys in the past and things like that. And so kind of reference what those had been done in the past and maybe apply what we learned from that to a future survey. So no, to get to your question, no, we did not come up with a time frame.
I think it's a great idea, and two things on that. You can always piggyback off of previous surveys if you can get your hands on that data. But obviously, implementation of this, I would like to see that moving forward as soon as possible.
We just thought it was a good way to reach out from the city and kind of build that bridge between the business community and the city at large. Because there are certain folks obviously real active, real involved in the city government, but some other folks may need you to approach them. This committee has been really informative for me and various other members of the committee. We took some field trips, did the city park. Ty was nice enough to bring a group of us out to each of the airports and kind of check that out. We met with Chief Davis, kind of learned a lot about the city to kind of get a good grasp on what we were trying to do.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other comments, questions? Alderman Rucker?
Yes, I'd just like to say that thank you for your time and all the committee. As I read through the report, my comments is that on item number 1, in reference to that, the board has kind of taken somewhat of a step to say, okay, we've instructed staff to put some information together in reference to someone to be an economic developer director. But also we have had the city administrator that has been carrying that burden on her shoulders. Right. So the second part of item number 1 was to have somebody with that responsibility, and even though it's there's only so much time that she has, but she has given some to it. So we've somewhat done item number 1. Item number 7, I believe we've kind of have been doing that, and in at least the way I understand it, and that is with in conjunction with TCLA on marketing and city branding and stuff. That's that we have been doing that, and, sure. And I support that, and we have supported it. I strongly support your guys' suggestion on item number 9. You know, we never can get enough feedback. We just have to develop. And we got to be careful on how we develop a survey, because sometimes a survey can be put together in such a way that you really don't get answers back other than what you want back, and that's okay to some extent, but it needs to be put there in such a way. And I'd like to say that I would like to have staff work with doing something along that lines, and if anything can develop up a draft of one and give that to the board to look at, and also give that to the committee to look at, which is a number of business people on that committee that can look at it with a different set of eyes, because I think that's something to move forward. And I would like to see us as a target date, see if we couldn't have that survey put together and be out before the first of the year. If that needs to be an emotion, or if my fellow board members agree or disagree, or that's my opinion on that specific item.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Anyone else?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Alderman
In
Morris.
regards to that survey, that's pretty generalized when you're looking at businesses. And being involved in the past with the Parkway West Business Association and a lot of businesses, everybody has their own opinion of what they would like to see the city do. And I think, in what you're saying, and I think it's good to have the survey, but we need to, I think, be a little bit more specific about questions to the businesses besides just what would you like to see the city do.
Sure.
You're going to have a gamut of answers, which we did before, and it's quite a challenge. And I'm certainly all in favor of doing whatever the businesses are wanting to do, but I just think we just need to be a little bit more specific of what we want them to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we found that with this committee, because we were kind of presented a blank sheet of paper and said, hey, let's work on economic development and a couple of things. It took a while to find direction with that. And that blank sheet of paper sometimes is one of the scariest things for a group to kind of bring together on that. It's exciting too, because you have a lot of freedom to do a lot of different things. When we leave that open-ended like that, I agree with you. And Alderman Rucker, I would like to address, you talked about item number 7, and we did recognize that the city does a good job of kind of getting the word out, but we just felt like there was more, there's a lot of free media out there that the city could possibly take advantage of a little bit to promote the city, promote what the city was doing. It was just kind of an emphasis on perhaps more, recognizing that yes, some communication obviously comes from the city through various media outlets, whether the traditional media outlets or social media. It was just kind of a recognize that perhaps more of an emphasis could be placed on that and really kind of pursue those different things. And I know some of that has been done in the past, and maybe we can just pursue more of it in the future.
Again, Luke, I guess,
I'm sorry, in addition to that, I think we've talked about this before, of business owners, of asking what they would like to see the city do, but I think another major question is, how many of you are willing to help volunteer to help us get this project, or whatever you would like to have accomplished? So that's where I'm at.
Sure. And I think just beginning that communication process, and I know those attempts have been made in the past and on smaller levels and maybe larger levels as well. But I think opening that door to, especially some of the new business owners, some of the new folks in our community who aren't as familiar and maybe haven't been asked yet, and it's oftentimes all it takes.
Right.
People are willing to help, willing to get involved, and they care about the city, but they don't know how to get involved. I found myself in that spot, at a certain point in my career, and through various boards and things like that, you start making connections, and then all of a sudden here I am addressing the Board of Aldermen, right? But that took even though I grew up here, I was born here, it took me a long time to kind of get to this point where I, feel comfortable standing up and talking with you folks.
Any other questions? Yes, Alderman Ross.
I don't have a question, but I would say that this is fairly self-explanatory, the report, I hope, and if there's questions, we can refer back later to myself or Luke or Phyllis or whoever. But I will say that I was very surprised, just me personally at least, as the support, the questions, the thoughts around the parks and the opportunity that we still have here in this city with our park system. When you look through, because we specifically discussed, should we pursue taxes for things like public safety? I think it goes to the chief and his group how great a job they're doing, that they're comfortable with the public service that they're getting from the police and don't think there's necessarily additional funding. But I was surprised that an additional tax was recommended for the parks. And I'm not saying that we necessarily should pursue this. We can have this discussion at a different time. But that was a bit surprising to me. And
it was good.
And there was much more of a commitment that, that 4-letter word tax. I was kind of surprised with that. I'll leave it.
That was kind of the general theme of the committee. But for whatever reason, the parks kind of stood out as something that we felt like, as a group, we really wanted to support, because we think that's especially the city park right here is such a hidden gem. Like I didn't, when we took our tour out there, I did not realize the facility that had been out there. I'd been out there to ball games, play a little catch out in the parking lot, and been around a little bit, but I didn't realize that property, and I don't think a lot of citizens of Osage Beach realize what we have there. And it was a good tour that we took that day, but I think that there's so much potential there. I think that's where the excitement came from.
Absolutely.
I agree, Alderman Ross, with your comments. These are issues that I think we can take this recommendation and use it as we go through our budgeting process, which we will be going through in the next couple of months. So, Luke, on behalf of you and your team, I appreciate their effort, the time, their commitment, and the recommendations that they put together. And on behalf of the board, I'd like to, as Alderman Rucker has already said, thank you all for that. You may be getting some questions back, from us, but it was a great effort, Gloria. We appreciate your participation also.
Yeah, and we like to thank you for the opportunity. It was good to have felt like you had your voice heard at least in some aspect. And like I said, we just, as far as the committee going forward, we think it's a good resource for you guys in the future, especially if specific issues or things come up that you need feedback from a group. I think this group would be a good group, in the future with a more detailed agenda kind of thing. Like
Or we may take a couple of these items and, ask you to expound on them without having such a broad range
Right.
or scope of project to work on. So
Absolutely. So,
thank
yeah.
you again for your time, Luke.
Appreciate your time and the
Appreciate it.
opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lou.
Thanks, Luke.
All right, our final item this evening is a discussion, a new project scope for Autumn Lane. We're going to go ahead and I guess hear from Mr. Van Leer, Cochran Engineering.
Yes, thank you. So we received direction to make some revisions to the Autumn Lane project. Primary direction was to extend the project north to the city limits, and then also prepare the project with the intent that Autumn Lane would be added to the city inventory at completion of the project. You should, in your packet, have an exhibit, something like this. I'll just quickly describe what you're looking at there. This is about 450 feet of new road, extending the project to the city limits, more or less double the length of the project. We're showing 2 9-foot wide lanes for a total width of 18 feet. Curb and gutter on both sides of the road, typical pavement section per the design guide for this road classification. Again, total road length of 450 feet. Given that we're showing curb and gutter, we also added curb inlets at the low point in the road, which you'll see on the exhibit. Total estimate for the project is $154,000 and change. Currently, we're hoping to get approval and direction from the board tonight as to how to proceed with the project. From there, we will begin finalizing the design. Currently, we're working with Ed on getting the right-of-way packets put together so that we can acquire the right-of-way needed to bring this project, to bring the street into city inventory. And then the plan would be to finalize design over the rest of 2021. Bid the project out this winter and then get construction going as soon as we can in 2022. I believe that's all I have. I'll take questions if there are any.
Questions from the board? Yes, Alderman Rucker.
A couple. First of all, I do not see any engineering fees in here. How come? Isn't there going to be some engineering fees for this project?
There already they're billing us by their time right now. I don't have that number in front of me, what it's up to the work up to this point.
Yeah, that would be, I guess my best answer for that would be included in the monies that you've approved under our contract.
We can get you that cost, though. We can get an estimate from this point
That's gonna be
forward,
part-
and then what
yeah,
we've.
That's going to be part of the overall commitment, whether we pay it, whichever way we pay it out, it's going to be part of this overall project.
We can get you that. I've got the to date in my office, and then from this, we can get an estimate to finish.
Short and sweet as you can make it, why do we go from 51,000 to 154,000 when I think we doubled the road, but we tripled the price?
Sure. Good question. So as you said, we doubled the length of the road, so that doubles the earthwork on the project, the base under the pavement, doubles the amount of pavement we have. We added curb and gutter to the project when we were directed to prepare the design to bring the street into the inventory. My understanding of that was that we would add curb and gutter to the project also because that's per the design standard. Almost $30,000 was added to the project cost for curb and gutter. Storm sewer added a little under $10,000 to the project. From there, we just updated construction costs based on some of the most recent projects we've had out to bid, primarily Mace Road and Wren Lane. Just reference pricing from those projects and updated our pricing for this project. So one thing I will say that I don't believe was in your previous estimate of our 154, I do have a 15% contingency built in. That's $20,000. We do not have a final design prepared for the project at this point, so there could still be things come up that we don't have accounted for in this cost estimate. That's why I included the contingency. Also, construction pricing is very volatile right now. It's been challenging to keep up with rising construction prices with our estimates. So I feel like at this point that 15% contingency is appropriate.
Did the first estimate have a contingency built into it?
I believe the first estimate was prepared by previous staff. I don't believe that it did.
Okay, so that's $20,000 right there. So he's identified $60,000 in cost.
Well, the other thing is, I just have to ask it, $1,000 per mailbox. I'll put them in.
Mailbox relocation.
I think we saw something similar to that on Ren Lane, is what the pricing was.
Oh.
Maybe we're getting federal pricing estimates. I don't know.
That's all. I have some other comments, but let's see if anybody else on the board has questions.
Any other questions? Yes, Alderman Ross.
So just for clarity, Dave and I spoke a little bit beforehand, and I want to make sure, and Dave, if you're not prepared to absolutely answer, that's fine, but I don't believe that curb and gutter are required for us to accept it into the city. What we currently possess, or the city owns, if you will, a part of Ren Lane, as I understand it, but this is an extension of the city inventory, for lack of a better term. It doesn't have curb and gutter either, I don't believe, does it?
Correct. No curb and gutter is on the previous portion.
Don't get me wrong, it's always nice to get curb and gutter, but the traffic in this area, I'm not sure convinced that it's critical, especially since the existing road doesn't have it, as long as we have sufficient, widths and so forth, and also have good drainage now. So in my mind, I think there's some opportunities to minimize some of the costs, and I don't know what the road board would think and so forth, but they may, think that, no, we really need cover and gutter. I'm not gonna, we don't need to have that conversation right now, but I think there is some opportunity here to reduce the cost through the curb and gutter, because it just doesn't seem like it would be needed on that road to me. Other people may have other opinions, but that's all I have at this point.
One of the major problems on that road has been storm drainage, if I remember correctly. And I guess the question I would have is, does that, without curb and guttering, do we get the proper drainage that we need to get to the storm drains? That'd be the question I would have.
That was a part of our thought with putting this design together. One of the, seemed like our first year or so working with you, one of the main things we did was address stormwater complaints from citizens. And in a lot of those complaints are in areas where there's not curb and gutter. And with this area being close to the lake, there's obviously a lot of water coming down the hill, and there's a lot of water to be handled and dealt with to keep from washing out people's yards and driveways. Our opinion was the best way to do the project was with curb and gutter. Potentially some opportunity to reduce the total quantity, but I guess our first presentation to you was with full curb and gutter on both sides of the road. The other thing I would say is you may recall on Ren Lane, we did not do curb and gutter. Difference there is that project is on top of a ridge, much less storm water to deal with. And it worked better in that situation. So we saw that as a good opportunity not to use curb and gutter. We felt like this project was a good application for curb and gutter.
Alderman Ross, Rucker, you had a question?
So if we didn't want the curb and gutter, we would still have some expense to take care of the shoulder work, wouldn't we? Or would we be able to remove the full 27 grand?
You would eliminate most of it.
I'm sorry.
You would eliminate most of that 27,000. There may be some new costs that come in, but most of it will go away.
Any other questions or comments? I'm a little concerned. You can, if this is what the board would like, make a recommendation for you to go back and take a look at the curb and guttering. But, again, I would much rather, incur the cost to eliminate that storm drainage problem that we've had in that area, you know, as opposed to putting the streets in and then finding out we haven't taken care of that problem. You might be able to go back and take a look at it and see if there's not some modifications that you can make to this plan, but that's my concern at this point. Yes, Alderman Becker.
Dave, would it make sense to just do curbs and gutters on the lake side of the street?
That would be something we could consider. Yeah, you know, those are the citizens you're potentially going to have complaints from, more likely. It just will be more challenging to get a clean project and not end up with ditches that are going to wash out if we don't have curb and gutter on both sides. But maybe that's a compromise to reduce some cost and still improve the drainage. One other thing I'll say that I should have said initially is this is a project that we're working on in conjunction with the Special Road District. Make sure everyone remembers that. We did just give a quick presentation on this last night to the Special Road District, just showing them the new project and the projected cost. We told them it had not been approved yet by you, so this new budget will also need to be approved by the Special Road District at their meeting next month, if you all ask us to get the budget approved.
Of course, Ron's here, and he might be able to speak to this, but was there an interest in increasing their previous commitment on this project? Ron, do you want to speak to it? Okay. Okay. Yes, Alderman Rucker.
Well, I think we have two steps here. One is we need to see what we want done there, you know, and we're at 154,000, and you know, if we can knock 20, 30,000 off for some of this curb and guttering, or half of it, or whatever, because I mean that's part of it. The second phase or second part of this is how is it going to be funded? You know, there's a number of ways for that to be done. Obviously, this is a private road. Historically, the city has only done engineering fees. That's all we've paid historically, to my remembrance. So that's why I wanted to know what the engineering fees are going to be on this, because also historically, the road district has done the blunt of the work, or the cost that we've done the work, they've done the cost, and they have went to the citizens that are on that road and historically asked them to contribute 10%. So that's just for the board's information, that's historically how things have been gotten done. Not always. There are some times when they don't get the 10% and the road district pays all of it. And we've done, but historically we have done the engineering work, and we haven't seen it as a line item because we had engineering in-house. Now we're going to be seeing it as a line item because we're not doing that in-house. So, you know, if the road district, you know, that they agreed to 51,000, we're now asking them to triple that. If they're not willing to do that, then, you know, where are we willing to go with it?
And that's why I asked, you know, Alderman Schmidt, ex-Alderman Schmidt, you know, his thoughts on that.
Let me tell you that we've got the money, whether the other two are interested in putting it there.
Right.
I would say probably.
What kind of conversation have we had with the owners along this road as far as right-of-ways? Have we had that conversation that they are on board to give the right-of-ways for the project and to turn the road over to the city upon completion? Do we have that, have we had that dialogue going with them?
Yes, all property owners whose frontage we are working along, we have spoken with and had a survey completed stating that they are in favor of the project and intend to donate right away for the project.
Has there been anything talked to them about cost, their cost?
No.
Not from the city, unless the special road district's done something.
Yeah, that would
City
normally be
has
with
not
the
done.
special road district.
And saying that we've kind of, I'm just a little concerned that the folks probably down there are not going to think about that, but there is a value to them.
Well, I agree. You know, first off, we have to decide what the scope of the project is. Now, this is a new scope. This is a new recommendation. We've gotten some proposals, you know, or some ideas, you know, presented by the board. I'll be real honest with you. I'm not interested, and I think, in setting a precedent where we do anything different than what we have done in the past as far as, you know, reconditioning a road to bring, before it's brought into the city. I think that needs to be the responsibility of the homeowners. And in the past, a lot of that has been done through the Special Road District, with great thanks to the Special Road District. And quite frankly, I believe, just from my own perspective, and it may not be the board's, that that's how this project should, you know, move forward. Now, as far as, you know, Dave taking, or Cochran Engineering taking a second look at this to possibly reduce some of the cost, the curb and guttering aspect of it, I'm going to leave that up to their recommendation, but I don't want to create more problems for the folks on the downhill side, you know, of this by having more asphalt and more rapidly running, you know, storm drainage, you know, even though we are putting in I think a storm box, you know, there. But Dave, we'll leave that up to you. That's why we have Cochran Engineering to make that recommendation. So I guess at this point, if with the board's comments, let me just finish and then I'll come back to you, is to go ahead and let, you know, Cochran Engineering reevaluate this, come back to the board, and Dave can probably tell us when he can do that. And at that point, then we can make our decision. And then once that's done, take it back to the Special Road District and see what their interest is in the funding aspect of it, and however they might want to include you know, any of the associated costs with the homeowners. Alderman Rucker.
I was just going to ask him if it was possible for the next meeting to be able to do that. The problem with that, obviously, is it can be on the agenda and they can provide us that information the night of, because I know the agenda's got to be, well, everything's got to be what, next week? Yeah. I mean, it can be put on the agenda without the supporting information. Is that something you could take a look at? And I'd be willing to support curb and gutter on both sides, but I'd like for the engineers to take another look at it.
Absolutely, and that's why we're asking them to reevaluate that based on some of the conversation this evening. We have a citizen, I believe, who is probably part of this project and has been very quiet, but looks like he would like to share something with us. So with the board's approval, if you would introduce yourself and please sign in so that we will have that for our records. And welcome, thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Rucker, I'm David Zare.
Nice to meet you, David.
Nice to meet you. We've talked on the telephone a couple of times, and I've met Alderman Ross and Alderman Becker at the site once with the engineer. This project as it stands tonight, if you recall, is an expansion, as you mentioned, of the first one. The first plan, and please understand, my house is on the first plan, so I have a special interest to that extent. But my house is the first house off the blacktop. We have been experiencing for years hard wash every time we have a substantial rain. Right now there's a rut that's almost a foot deep from that big storm that we had about a week or 10 days ago. When we put the first plan together, the drawings that I had included curb and gutter and asphalt and a drop box down to the bottom of the hill. And that's where the $54,000 came from. Was that 2 years ago? I can't remember.
We have
My wife says
a reference on it.
we lost a year with the pandemic.
2019, April
Okay.
2019.
So that was the plan, and the expansion comes from that plan. I will tell you that I was a little surprised at $155,000 when I looked at the estimate. However, I don't challenge the engineers. They're the experts, and they're the ones who know what needs to be done. What concerned me a little bit tonight that I'd like to mention to you, and please don't think I'm complaining, because I'm not. I'm 100% in favor of this project. All the neighbors I've talked to are 100% in favor of the project. If you don't do a rolled curb, the water's going to run off the blacktop, and it wants to go to the lake, and it's going to go to the lake. I could show you pictures of gravel on my grass, because that's where the water wants to go. So for us, the curb and gutter is critical to get the water down to the drop box. If you don't put one on the other side and you crown the road, which I'm assuming is what's going to happen, because that's usually what we always do, then the water's going to run over towards the people on the west side, and it's going to rut, because it almost has to. There is no piping or road ditch to get that water from coming down the hill and off the blacktop down to the drop box. That's where the idea of curb and gutter came from, just so if any of you want to know, why isn't it just blacktop like some streets? It's just because of the geography of where the project's located. With regard to the street itself, and this is what Mr. Rucker and I have had the opportunity to kind of discuss. I was a city attorney up in Northeast Missouri for 25 years, and we immediately realized that this is a problem that you have pretty much in every town, where you have, is this a road, is it not a road, is this an alley, is it not an alley, is somebody encroaching or are they not? Years ago, I think this road was a private road. Years ago, it started being used by the general public. I've been there since 2006, and there has been pretty much constant traffic in and out. 18-wheelers come down that road, and I can't tell you why, other than they may not like the hill at the end of 3 seasons, but I see them come down, pardon me, quite often, and they're headed for Shardy Pants. And Shardy Pants is another piece of information that I really hope you will consider, because their parking lot points people out onto Autumn Lane. And believe me, they use it. I can tell you between 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and between 4:30 or 5 and 1:30 in the morning, there are a lot of cars going by using it. And the private street part, I think, is no longer an issue. It's no longer an issue for me as an attorney, because we can't privately claim adverse possession, but of course the city can. So after it's used for a period of time, then it's appropriate. So the city sent everyone a letter. I'm sorry, did the city or the engineer, David, send that letter?
We did it on behalf of the city.
Okay. And asked us if we were willing to convey our interest to the city for the road right-of-way. And everyone who I've dealt with sent their letter back. I did. And that kind of helped the project get moving on phase one, which now has become the expanded phase. So, number one, I think that the issue of whether it's a public road right now really isn't a substantial issue anymore. Number two, everyone on the road is really looking forward to not having gravel go down their yard like mine, and having people who come to Shardy Pants from all over not have to drive on. I wish I could invite you to watch people come down the blacktop and go in front of my house, and they get to the bottom of the hill, and all they can see is something like a dirt road with some gravel in it, and their brake lights are on. They're trying to figure out what went wrong. And we realized that the GPS sends them down Autumn Lane. And if they don't see the sign at Autumn Lane and Three Seasons that says, hey, Shardy Pants is this way, they all come by. So it's going to be much safer for everyone, including the patrons of Shardy Pants. Are they in the city limits? No, they're not. I understand that. But they're still putting money into the economy, and I think they would appreciate it if they would have a street like they're used to driving on instead of a dirt rock road. The only other thing I'd like to tell you or say to you is we've been working on this project for quite a while. And if we don't get it done this time, I don't know what we could do differently to convince you that this project really needs to go through. And one of the things that stopped it years ago was the participation, the homeowner participation. And we had two owners say, I'm not doing that. And so that was the end of it. No matter what the rest of us wanted to do, everybody had to agree to that. And we had a lot of discussion about that with some farmer staff when this whole thing was being put together. And we said, this isn't going to work, you know, and if we can get the Special Road District to fund it, the city will assist in the construction and take over the street. That's how the first project got put together. We're still at the same place. Yes, we've mushroomed the price. We've lengthened the road. I just hope that you'll see that this has value for every dollar that's going to go in it. I know we don't pay real estate taxes to the city, and thank you to the advisory committee for putting something in there about not doing property taxes. But still, we're all part of the city. We're also part of the county. And we want to be good neighbors, whether we live here full-time or not. And I hope you will understand that. We're not trying to get something for nothing, but we're trying to get something that's just not tearing up our neighborhood anymore. Thanks very much for allowing me to speak, Mr. Mayor.
We appreciate your comments. I believe where we are now, something is going to happen. The question is, just exactly what. Whether it has full curb and guttering on both sides or whatever. I think the fact that the road itself is going to be improved, and it appears based on the comments from this board that we want to take it and extend it that additional length. so that we take it to city limits. So that will help that part of the road also. So I think once we have a recommendation coming in from our engineers, you'll see this project moving forward, and we'll be meeting with the Special Road District and involving you all when it becomes necessary. And I appreciate very much your time, and I appreciate your patience in, getting this thing done. And especially your comments about the storm drainage, because again, I remember this being a major problem in that area for a number of years.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I will communicate to the neighbors tomorrow morning.
Thank you very
what
much.
you said, Mr. Mayor.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Any other comments from the board? I believe where we are is that Cochran will reevaluate this based on comments from this evening, come back to us at the next board meeting. If something prevents that from happening, we'll do it as best we can. But right now, the goal is to have that work done and that proposal back, at which time the board can make a decision and then bring the Special Road District, back involved with it at that point. Is there any other opinion from the board on that, or have I summarized that well? All right. All right, then let's move on. We are at communications, since that was our last item. Communications, we start with our board, Alderman Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one thing, and that is last meeting, with the audio problems we had, I didn't mention and others did, and I want to echo the respect and thoughts that I have for Tom Walker. He's done a great job and served for a long time, and he's battling some challenges now. And I did talk with Tom last Friday, and he's hanging in there. But we're sure going to miss him, and just want to thank him formally for everything he's done. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Alderman Morales.
Yes, thank you, Alderman Ross, for mentioning Tom. That was on my notes. We will all continue to keep him in our prayers. Secondly, I think it behooves our city to recognize, I feel like I'm talking very loud, Dr. Paula Brown and her committee that in this past week did the first time in our city and around the lake of having an art exhibit, and I can't even pronounce the French, En Plan Art Festival, but brought in artists from all over the country. It wasn't just local artists. And they exhibited their talents at different locations, not only in Osage Beach and Lake Ozark and Camden. And for half a day, then they would go to another location. They would paint something and complete it as people watched how talented that they were. And then all of the paintings were on exhibit at the Lodge of the Four Seasons on Saturday. Many artists sold their paintings. They were very pleased. Many of them had never been here. And as Dr. Brown said, this will be an ongoing event. And it was just very exciting and such a perseverance for her to get this all off the ground. So I just wanted to put our city out there to thank her for putting this wonderful venue to our area, because we certainly have not had that in the past. And obviously with school starting this next week, as we've been hearing, buses and cars, look out for the children waiting for buses and being patient for them to stop. And other than that, I just want to thank the Special Road District for the contributions that they're doing in helping with what we're trying to get completed here. And welcome back, Kevin. We've missed you. And that's it. Thank you.
Alderman Rose, thank you for bringing up Dr. Brown's accomplishments. She did come to the board, and the board did provide some funding for that project. I would hope that maybe, do you know her personally?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
If you would mind just having her just kind of put something together, come share with us some of the successes of that event, I think that would be great.
Yes.
I think it's wonderful to have something like that, in the lake area, and I'm glad to hear that she felt like it was successful enough to want to continue to do this. And
Thank you. And it was crazy because during the week, she was getting so disappointed because she didn't have many responses to come to the gala. And as it turned out, 130 people showed up that night.
Really?
And she was just thrilled.
How in the world did they feed them without knowing how did they end up feeding them without having some pre-reservation number?
I don't know, but
Yeah,
anyway,
okay.
it was phenomenal. And now I said, Paula, I said, you have such ambition. And she said, and I said, maybe the next time is to have all the local artists and then stagger it year after year as far as artists from out of state or town and then the local artists. And she said, my next mission, she said, I would like to just initiate some type of a sculptural trail. And she said, and I'm looking into that as well. And I said, don't hesitate because you've got wonderful ambition and talent. And anyway, it's great that she can put things together.
She had shared that as part of, her comments when she came to us. Thank you very much. Alderman Osteen.
Yes. Paula Brown was my high school art teacher.
Okay.
FYI, which was what, 10 years ago? Is that when it was?
5.
I actually only had one
Just
comment,
dreaming.
and she's not here this evening. That was to commend the Parks Department. I went to a co-ed softball tournament last evening, and I was very impressed with the maintenance of not just the ball fields, but of the grounds, general areas, the concession stand. It really is a gem that I don't think enough people utilize here at the lake area that we probably should promote more. So kudos to the Parks Department.
That's great.
All right, is that it?
That's it.
Thank you very much. Alderman Becker.
I have nothing there.
Alderman Rucker.
Yes, a couple of things. Number one, I understand Wren Lane is completed. I was actually on it the other day. There is something that occurred there that I don't know if we can do anything about in the future, but this project has taken quite some time and to be completed and go from a gravel road to asphalt. 2 days after the asphalt was done, our cable company took and drilled underneath the road to hook on to the cable and ran a trench all the way down the one side, and now there's a little bump. Why they couldn't have done that trench 2 days earlier, I don't know. I don't know if it's something we as a city can be more proactive and say, hey, we're going to be doing this. I don't know. I mean, but it was just kind of disturbing to see that occur. And I know I've seen other things where we'll do street stuff, and then all of a sudden they'll come in and cut the road. And I realize that has to go on from time to time, but I don't know if we can communicate when we're doing some of these things that, hey, the contractor gets a hold of the utilities. Or I don't know if it's possible or if it's just one of those things that's just part of doing business. So, but for what that's worth. But while we're on Wren Lane, when's that proposal coming to the board to put that into city inventory? Who's working on that project?
I do not have a timeline, but I know it was in our notes, so I guess I'll have to, I probably just need to get with Cochran and see if we've got all the deeds and everything, then it should be soon.
Alderman Rucker, I spoke with Eric Howell with Cochran earlier today about this. So, Gina was extremely busy later today. I never got to her to talk to her about that, but that is something that is coming down the pipeline very quickly here. Yes, sir.
Okay. The other thing is, one of the other, is the Deerberg's sidewalk project. Dave, when's that going out for bids? What's the timeline on it, do you know?
We pretty much committed to having that design done near the end of the year, bidding around the first of the year, December, January, February timeframe for construction early 2022.
Okay. This project that the road district has brought forth tonight to the board, I don't see any reason why that green light shouldn't be on that project. Its funding is there. It's on our, it's something that is needed. Is there any reason why the engineering people can't start working on that sooner rather than later and get that? Because to me, in my mind, that would be a perfect project to pair up with the Deerberg project. Those two sidewalk projects together, I think, would be a dynamite pair of construction to be done together. And with that in mind, with your time frame, what you're telling me on Deerberg, if we could, I don't see any reason why we can't move forward with it. And try to be in that November, December time frame to let both of them for bid. And I fully support, obviously, moving forward with that project with the road district.
I wrote on my notes, as soon as you guys concluded that was the intent, to bring a budget amendment to formally amend the budget at next meeting, which was kind of the direction before, and I can do a first and a second, and then that would give them pretty quick time to jump on their same timeline, hopefully with the other project. So I wrote that note already, so.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Have we already done some work on the Deerbergs project, Dave? Okay.
No, only preliminary work and cost estimates is all we've done.
Okay. The other project is going to require some work with MoDOT, some additional work with MoDOT through that part of the right-of-way.
Step one is we're going to get our survey crews out there and do the survey and see what we have to make sure we've got room for everything. Not certain at this point if MoDOT will be involved or not.
Okay. All right. We'll have them take a look at it and see how they can work it into their schedule, and we'll keep you apprised. All right. On the staff, City Administrator.
Yes. Well, good news. We applied for our ARPA money, the American Rescue Plan Act Fund money, and we got a very quick response. And we also got notice today that money will be deposited as early as Monday. So once the Office of Administration got on it, they were very quick. So I was kind of worried about that.
Federal government's doing this?
No, the state, well, the federal government is sending it to the state of Missouri, and since we're a non-entitlement fund city, or non-entitlement city, then we are working with the state directly, whereas if you were over 50,000 population, you work with U.S. Treasury directly. And the application deadline's September 1, so I immediately got it done the first day it opened, and we're getting our money very quickly. And I know I put this in my recent city administrator report. The way the act reads, there are specific uses that these funds can be used for. Funds need to be appropriated by the end of 2024. Checks need to be written and out the door by the end of 2026, so we've got plenty of time. We get half of the funds up front, which is hopefully next week. We'll have that, and then 12 months from that date, we'll get the other half. We are working internally just with some recommendations, some more specific guidelines, so you will be seeing something soon so the board can start deciding or prioritizing and you know what that means. So you will see something very quickly, but I felt it important to make sure we understood the rules. We actually got the money. You know, reporting starts in October, although the first report's going to be 0 because, you know, we're not in any hurry. So rest assured, you've got plenty of planning and strategic time, but I just wanted to make sure we got the money in hand first. So, and that's happened very quickly. That is really the only report I have. The only thing on my notes.
We compliment the state for moving those dollars out, but the state's been sitting on those dollars for a couple of months, okay? Waiting for the processing to get into place. So once they got it into place and everything was solidified, then they moved very quickly on getting out, the application, the response back to the application, and now the distribution of the money. So we're glad to know that it's coming our way. All right, City Attorney.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
City Clerk.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Chief, how about you?
Just to pass on, since last meeting, I covered that we have our police officer positions filled. We promoted Lexi Morley to communications supervisor, and we've hired 2 more communications officers. We had one start yesterday, Stella Sullivan, and Carrie Moore starts next Wednesday. So we're working on filling those vacancies now.
Good news. Your department is starting to fill up with people, which is nice to hear.
Yes, it is.
I know you've been working with that challenge for quite some time. City planner. City treasurer. Assistant city administrator.
Thank you, Alderman Osteen, for what you said about Nicole and the staff out there. There's been a lot of turnover out there, and we're very pleased with what we're seeing as well. She would have been here tonight, but they have men's league tonight. You were at the co-ed last night, and unfortunately, we didn't have any umpires, so Nicole is actually umpiring tonight. So she's hard at work for us out at the park, but thank you for your comments.
All right, Public Works Operations Manager.
About 2 weeks ago, Mike Welty and I went through a series of interviews, one for a water position and one for a sewer position. We selected 2 candidates, and one wouldn't fill out the background check and the other never responded to his offer. So, and with that, I would just say, as far as the labor market go, the struggle is still real. So we'll cast a line out and repost.
Yeah, you're not the only person in the area who has made that comment. And as a matter of fact, I guess Alderman Rucker and I were talking about his extended trip and some of the signage that he saw, mostly help wanted, you know, wherever he went. So this is not just a problem for the lake area. This is definitely a problem, you know, throughout the nation. But you're absolutely right. Just be vigilant is all I can say. And I know that you are.
That was the #1 sign I seen in every state, every city, every time I turned around was help wanted, help wanted, help wanted. So, yeah.
All right, building official.
I'd just like to report that the building inspection and building maintenance departments are fully staffed. Thank you.
Well, that is
jealous.
good news. That is good news. IT.
As is IT. I just want to thank the mayor and members of the board for your patience with all the audio issues that we're having. It's a little better tonight, but I can hear it, so I'll address it and get it resolved before the
See,
next.
it wasn't all my fault.
No, it's definitely not Gina's fault, but I'll work with Morgan Music and we'll get it dialed in before the next board meeting. So thank you all for your patience.
Appreciate it. Airports.
Nothing.
Nothing. All right. Mr. Van Leer.
I'll be brief, just a quick update on Mace Road. You'll see work continues on the west half of the project. There's storm sewer going in, and there's some concrete work being done also. Expecting to see that west half of the project get paved late September. From there, the contractor will move on to the east half of the project, do the same thing there, concrete storm sewer work, get the road base prepped. Paving there will be early November. So that's what we're looking at for a project schedule. At this point, the contractor is on the schedule he gave us. We'll keep you apprised of any changes. That's all I had.
So we're looking at a completion date for the project of sometime in November, once the asphalt work has been done.
Yeah, they'll have the asphalt
some
work.
cleanup.
Yep, hopefully asphalt paving completed early November, and then getting the project dressed up and getting everything stabilized from there.
That road looking really good, and I know it's been a while, you know, but there's been a lot of money put into that project, so it's all been worthwhile, and I know that the folks that live out in that area are very appreciative of that. Our business for the evening is complete, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.